Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're watching this. This is another episode of the Rosinbaggers podcast previewing the upcoming season. Ty, how you doing, bud?
Doing well. Spring training got underway, of course, this past week. Spring training has already been flying by, quite literally been
Yeah,
flying by, with the new pitch clock. And let's just start there because this is fascinating. I was on the fence about it. I wasn't completely crushed about the pitch clock rule. I wasn't devastated by the pitch clock rule. The old traditionalist in me wasn't out throwing rocks saying, get off my lawn and stop messing with my game. Not on this one. I wanted to see how it played out. And interestingly enough, and I know that we're only about 4 or 5 games into spring training, but interestingly enough, the stats on things have been uh, mind-boggling at best. The side-by-side comparisons that they've done with games in real time from a year ago to at bats now in real time with the clock is something that I really think baseball should be applauded for. That they put in the work behind this, they put in the legwork. They realized what this had the potential to do for a section of a fan base for a game that had been crying for more pace, for quicker action, for less time in between. That they wanted less Vin Scully life stories in between every single pitch, and they got that with this new implementation of the rule. And other than maybe a few bumps and bruises here and there with a walk-off winner with a pitch clock, which we've never seen before in the history of the game, I think it's going pretty well. And I honestly give it a grade A at this point in spring training, which I did not envision myself doing 2 weeks into the Rosinbaggers pod season 2.
yeah, for sure. I like you. I think we both were talking about kind of the jury's going to be out until we see how this plays out because we saw the stats from AAA and the minor leagues and how it worked and you got some game time back, but I agree with you 100% that I think the biggest thing, whether or not we get time back, the pace is so much better. I don't want to see somebody traipsing around the mound, picking up the rosin bag, right? Not to downplay the name of the podcast here, but tossing it around and tinkering around. Like, get on the mound and pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just that, right? You mentioned the whole walk-off strike to end a game and a tie, yada yada. Get in the box and hit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want to see action on the field. That's why football is such a draw. That's why basketball is such a draw. Those are fast growing games. And you want to talk about a sport that really figured this out in terms of keeping eyes on the TV set. The fastest growing sport in North America is NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
And they've completely changed the way that their entire sport is governed. Right? It's new playoff format. It's the stage format, and it makes endings so much more interesting. It keeps eyes on the screen. Baseball is starting to do that with this, and I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to be governed, exactly how it was going to be officiated, but I think they've done a really good job in spring training of, hey, players, you're going to have to adjust. This is part of the game. And I'm glad we had, right? Obviously, we have spring training every year, but I'm glad we had spring training to see this play out and have the players have an opportunity. Watching Max Scherzer and the way he just commands both the pitch clock and the mound now, like, that's double scary for guys facing Max Scherzer. So I think it's, like you said, I give it an A. I want to see in the regular season if we see some leeway given in one way or the other from these umpires, or if it is going to be fully officiated the way it is. I had the question posed to me by a buddy of mine who's a big baseball fan too. He said, would you want to see the World Series ended like that after that game ended like that, right? And I said, listen, game 1 or game 162, get in the fucking box and hit, right? That's my stance. And I've been steadfast on this podcast, and I always was as a player. Just get on the mound and pitch, get in the box and hit. All that fucking rigmarole that you go through, it isn't going to do you any. You're not going to hit my fastball any better than you would if you just got in the box, right? So,
yeah, I don't see it being that big of an issue in the postseason because we've had this spring training time to implement things. I think one of the interesting things that, and I was listening to Chip and Brad Thompson the other day on the Cardinals broadcast, talking a little bit about with the WBC, with the World Baseball Classic, and it'll be interesting to see because the World Baseball Classic isn't using the pitch clock. They're not using the shift regulations that is being implemented in the MLB spring training, and this is fascinating because where's your big names? Where's your big stars? You're all going to the World Baseball Classic. Meanwhile, I think from a competitiveness standpoint, from a evening the playing field, if you will. Now, nobody that gets 2 more weeks of spring training games is going to go from a AAA guy to a Mike Trout. I'm not saying we make that much of a drastic jump,
Sure.
but I'm saying that there's certain advantages that these players that are sitting around in spring ball are going to have, and that's more time with these shift regulations, figuring out how to defensively play that, and it's more time with these clock regulations. And I think what we'll see as the season progressively plays out is batters just get used to it. Okay, gotta go hit. We can't do the same old bullshit we used to do and sit around there and try to ice the pitcher, if you will, by standing outside the box. We got to go. We got to step in, and especially, you have 1 or 2 games that walk off with a strike call because you weren't ready to roll. Then you're not going to be making that mistake in October. I guarantee.
Right.
The very last thing on your mind is, well, let's take a step back.
Yeah, for sure. And as my dad says here, I think echoing kind of what we've been saying, it's going to sort itself out by the end of the season. It's just going to be another part of the game. And I think it's going to be a beneficial part of the game because, as we've seen, it isn't so much about the length of the game in terms of time. It's about the pace within. It could be a 5-hour game, right? But you're going to keep eyes on the television screen if it's an exciting 5-hour game.
Your watchability factor has gone up tremendously. The amount of times, and I've watched 2 spring training games so far. Not tooting my own horn, I'm actually a little disappointed at myself for not watching more baseball, but I've seen 2 spring training games so far. The amount of times that I've gone and, let's see what the hell's going on Facebook. Let's check out who's, messaging in what group chat, of the 16,000 group chats. I'm spending less time bogged down in my phone, more time watching the baseball. And a lot of that's just because it's quicker and it has you locked in.
Yep. And that honestly, that has to be the goal for baseball because it really has been kind of the reason most fans have said they can't watch the game because it's so slow. You mentioned the get off my lawn guy. Gary Sheffield was that guy for all of us.
Oh my God. Yes.
His Twitter post about the people that were complaining are going to go back to Netflix. We'll see what the ratings play out, but I'm already a fan of this.
Absolutely.
One last piece to get your thoughts on before we progress into the AL West. Sticking on the West Coast, Manny Machado signs an 11-year deal for $7 billion. I get what he's done for that franchise, right? He's been the life of the party. He's been a big piece of why they're on the uptrend, why they had a chance to go to the World Series last year. They get Tatis back this year. That team could be different, right? It could be very dangerous, but he gets 11 years and he's already in his age 31 season. So by the time this contract's over, he's going to be 42. And we just saw this play out with one of your beloved, all-timers in Albert Pujols. The last few years of that contract was very hard, right, to justify the dollar signs that he was getting. How do you feel about this deal with Machado? I know he's kind of in his prime and they're going to get his best years, but 11 years at the age of 31?
You're getting the best years. You're locking a guy up with guaranteeing that you're not going anywhere other than sunny San Diego, and certainly you have to think that was part of the negotiating process, that he wanted a long-term deal, and if he was going to stay somewhere, he wanted to stay there for a maximum 10 years. You typically see deals like this will get restructured after 5 to 6 years, and even if some playability starts to fade away, they might restructure and change some things around. But what I love from Manny is from his standpoint, from the organization, and you mentioned a little bit about Fernando Tatis. I think this is a sign for San Diego that's saying, listen, you've done things the right way for this organization for your entire career. You've been a vocal leader in the clubhouse and in the dugout. And you flash back to 2 years ago when it was Slam Diego, and it was all rainbows and sunshine, and they were partying in the dugout and having a real juvenile ass time of it. And who was the guy that was right on their ass chewing them out? Manny Machado was the first person that you looked at, and instantly that whole dynamic of that dugout changed, and it became like a professional baseball organization rather than just kids playing around having fun. What I say is he's done everything right to get to this point where he can earn that 10-year deal. Monetarily wise, what are you going to do? And I don't want to sound like the red zoner, like where are you going to go? What you going to do? But you got to lock up. You got to lock him up. And again, I'll go back to the designated hitter being a big part of. We're going to see longer term contracts in the future. We're going to see guys get deals that go into their 40s, what would typically be considered past your prime era of baseball is going to only get higher as these careers get elongated with the designated hitter in place. And I think San Diego certainly has that aspect in mind. And the other thing that I'm thinking from San Diego's perspective, they still have a big question mark with Fernando Tatis.
Is he ever going to grow up?
Is he going to professionally reform? And I say professionally reform as if he's gone and done something incredibly horrible, but he continues to shoot his career in the foot by making reckless decisions. First, it was the motorcycle. Then it was the performance-enhancing drugs to get over the injury from your motorcycle, so to speak. He's made wrong move after wrong move, and at some point, San Diego has to say, hey, if we get him back, great, but if we don't, we have plan B established for 11 years. And I think that's more of what they were doing rather than just saying, we have a conversation with his agent. This was the only way we're going to keep Manny. I think this is more of a, we got to have a plan post Tatis if it comes to that reality. And I couldn't be more thrilled for the guy. He's one of those divisive characters where in baseball, you have this love-hate relationship with players like that. I'm so damn tired. Him and Jose Altuve are like 1A and 1B for those guys. I'm so damn tired of them being so successful because they're constantly successful, and it gets annoying. Like, you want to see them strike out once. It doesn't happen. I couldn't be more thrilled for him and what he's put into this game, and certainly for that city of San Diego. He is more than deserved of the paycheck.
Yeah, and everything you said, 100%, I agree. And on top of that, I add to, this is, to me, right, San Diego, this franchise is yet another reason why the Oakland Athletics owner can kiss the fattest part of my ass.
Mm-hmm.
Because Oakland is a much bigger metropolitan area than San Diego is. And San Diego is spending money to keep their own, but also build their team and bring in players, while the Oakland owner is just fucking crying poverty. Well, I can't sell tickets. Well, you got a shitty product to put on the field. I can't do anything with the team because I don't have money. Like, you're getting so much money from Major League Baseball to begin with, and you have the 11th biggest metropolitan area in Major League Baseball. Miss me with all of that, because I'm going to show you San Diego is yet another example of a small market team that says, hey, we got this money from baseball. We're going to go spend it. We're going to get these players in. And guess what? We're going to fill the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something we've seen the last couple of years. You mentioned the Slam Diego year. We mentioned the playoffs last year, right? They got to the NL Championship Series. And that stadium was packed and it was rocking. And I can tell you, as somebody who was in San Diego when they were on a hot streak, I think it was when they had won 13, it was 15 in a row, making a playoff push when they had Scotty Hairston. I was in that stadium and it was full and it was fucking rocking. It was a great time. So you put a good product on the field, if you build it, they will come.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's shift gears here. The whole objective of this episode, let's talk AL West, and we'll start, as we have been with every other division, we'll start right at the bottom. I've got to eat a little crow one more time because I picked the Rangers to win this division last year. I also picked them as a dark horse to do something in the AL and make some noise. I thought they'd made enough moves in the pitching staff last year, and they hadn't. But as you can see from the graphic here, they went out and got a lot more pitching this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ty, Talk to me, buddy. Was it enough? Was I just a year too soon? Was I ahead of my time?
You're going to be really upset, and we're going to have a lot of deja vu with this pod as we flash back to the last pod. I'm going to say too soon, Scooter, too soon on the Texas Rangers. Your dark horse team from a year ago is by far and away. I don't even know if I want to call them a dark horse at this point. I think the Texas Rangers are on everybody's radar, and if they're not, you're fucking crazy as a baseball fan and as an analyst if you don't have Texas towards the top of this division. The moves they made in the offseason, and we can talk about the pitching staff, and we can talk about the rotation additions and what that's going to do. But when you add an arm like Haney from the Dodgers, Evaldi from the Red Sox, and DeGrom from the Mets, mercy sakes, that's scary. It's murderer's row, and the offense didn't take a step back. But the biggest thing in my mind, among all of these big ass names that they paid a boat ton of money for, is now you have a manager that has World Series pedigree that knows how to manage a baseball team like this with stars on the squad like this. You bring in Bruce Bochy, who, let's just call a spade. The San Francisco went through a rebuilding year. After the Bochy World Series run, after the Mad Bomb, after the Tim Lincecum years, they went through a rebuilding year, and Bochy, excuse me, for whatever reason, just got the raw end of it. And you know, success-driven business. If you don't have the Jimmies and Joes to compete with the other Jimmies and Joes in your division, you're going to go downhill in a hurry. And that's what happened in San Francisco. Rejuvenated, hungry, still has an itch for the game. Double B, I can't say enough for what he's going to do to this Texas Rangers organization. Oh, by the way, you're playing in a fantastic facility with hungry, crazy baseball fans that have been just salivating for some success in the American League West. Here's their opportunity, full foot on the floor. They might not win this damn division because the Astros are still really, really good, and we'll talk about them in a second. But I have them making a dramatic shift in stock, moving all the way up to 2 in the division. And let's give them a nice old round number. I was born in 1986, so let's say 86 and a playoff appearance for the Rangers. You were too soon, my friend. But you saw it, and I can respect that, and I can give you full credit for listen. You can be a scout for the St. Louis Cardinals because if you spotted the Rangers 365 days ago before the Rangers were actually good, if you spotted that and have that eye for potential talent, I want you on my organization. You were in the ballpark. You were in the wrong ballpark, but you were in the ballpark.
I was up the road. I was in the right zip code. Yeah, look, I'm with you on all of that. It was pitching last year that I said that the lineup would overcome the pitching, right? I said that last year that I thought they made some moves to get stronger up the middle. They were strong up the middle. It was the pitching that concerned me last year, but I thought I thought the hitting would overcome that. It didn't. Let's be really blunt about it. It didn't. The pitching was that bad. Obviously, the DeGrom move is what it is. It's the most obvious move to talk about. If they get 20 starts from him this year, they're going to get 11 wins, and you know they're gonna do well with him. The move that I really like, you mentioned Haney. I love that move because he's a lefty in that ballpark. I think he's a good guy to add to that rotation, and they're not going to ask him to be their number one, despite the fact that I do think he has 1A type stuff. I don't think he's the horse that I would call an ace of a lineup, or of a rotation, but I think he's got that top level stuff that he's going to be a really good addition to that rotation. And they didn't lose much in free agency either. They lost a reliever, right? Matt Moore was kind of their big loss. It was a reliever in the bullpen. For me, I'm exactly with you, and I was so close to picking them to win this division. But then I got looking at what the Astros lost versus what they added and what they have in reserve. So it was just too tough for me to say that they would move all the way from the basement to the penthouse. But I've got them on the next floor down in second place. I'm actually a little more bullish in terms of win number.
Ooh.
I've got them winning 90 plus. I'm 90 to 93 on the Rangers this year.
You know what else I like that Texas did? And you mentioned not losing a lot of guys. this offense looks identical to where it finished a year ago,
Yep.
In terms of the lineup and what that does. And we don't talk a lot about when we talk about these big name acquisitions and guys coming into a clubhouse and what they'll add. And you saw it a little bit. I even think with Toronto last year, with the addition of Chapman. You saw it with Olsen swinging over to Atlanta and Freeman swinging over to LA. They don't gel right away. The lineup doesn't mesh together as quickly as a lot of people think that landing a big name signing is going to do. Correa in Minnesota, another example. You need that chemistry, and you need to have a guy like Double B. I'll throw Joe Madden in those mixes, in those names. You need a guy like Tony La Russa to sort it all out and put the guys in the right spot that are going to produce for you. Texas has already solved that 365 days ago on the offensive end.
Yeah, they did.
And now you just get guys to go out and hurl 96. You'll be all right. Texas is going to have a fun year, provided, of course, naturally, as all things do when we talk about previews in baseball. If the health stays, this could be a fun bandwagon to get on board and watch take off. And a lot of the what I can't wait for is kind of like being a Christmas Easter Catholic and going to church only twice a year, and then they change stuff on you all the time, and you're all of a sudden you're kneeling in a spot where you should be standing, and vice versa. I'm curious for like the baseball neutrals that haven't been paying attention, but they will watch you in October, similar to what I do in college basketball. Every time March rolls around, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been watching all year, obviously. Then my bracket sucks, and we know why I was so horrible at it. But I can't wait till October of next year, and the Rangers are there, and all the baseball. Ooh, where'd these guys come from? Texas must be having it. It's been coming. It's been
coming, guys.
If you listen to the Rosinbaggers podcast, you would have had the Rangers on your radar a year ago.
We gave you the answers to the test. All right. I don't think we can overstate enough either, right? The effect that I think Bochy's going to have. That's a big reason why I think I was kind of close, right? 85 to 87 as I first started considering things, but then I just got thinking more about Bochy, the Bochy factor, what he did in San Francisco with some inferior rosters too, right? Like, let's not pretend like the Lincecum and Bumgarner eras were loaded rosters, right? They had a really good pitching staff, and they manufactured runs on the offensive side, and he managed that pitching staff and that lineup. Bochy is a big get.
Fuck's sake, Panda was your cleanup hitter on that team.
Right, exactly. Let's be real about it. Bochy is a master. You mentioned Joe Madden. He's in that same conversation with guys like that they get the most out of a lineup and a rotation. And you mentioned it. They went out and filled this lineup to the brim last year and didn't lose anybody. All right. Let's shift up the rankings a little bit, and let's talk about, actually, I got to make sure I'm doing this in the right order. So I skipped one. I'm sorry. I have them in here. The Rangers finished on the bottom, but they didn't finish last.
Correct.
So I'm going to go back to the last place team that we already shit on once in this episode. So let's shit on them again. The Oakland Athletics, who made a couple of moves to bring in some low-level kind of also-rans, right? That's right. When your big free agent moves are Ledmus Diaz and Jace Peterson.
I remember him like 8 years ago when he played for the Cardinals.
Right.
Good to see he's still hanging around in the league.
Good Lord. They didn't do much in the offseason, which we wouldn't have expected from them. The biggest thing they're looking at is, of course, the move, and I got Vegas up there if that's where they end up. Talk to me about the A's, man. What is there for fans of the Athletics to look forward to as well?
Basketball season. You got Golden State right down the road, and I guess they're still pretty good. I don't know. I don't watch the NBA, but as long as Steph Curry can still hit some threes,
right.
Just about anything else. You could go paint your house and watch it dry, and it's more exciting than Oakland Athletics baseball at this point. It's a sad story. That's not getting any happier anytime soon, because this lineup didn't get any better. In fact, they probably took a step back.
Yes.
losing Stephen Vogt to is just a kick in the sack to all of the Oakland fans that have had to endure this. And then, your one exciting moment with Stephen Vogt, and he hits a home run in his last game as an Oakland Athletic a year ago.
With his kids announcing.
So great.
That was what a moment.
A great moment for a franchise that should have zero moments in their existence, because again, ownership has completely decimated this team. The pitching staff, if it's held together by a stick of juicy fruit and a couple twisty ties, is already off to a pretty wobbly start with Kaplerlin on the injured list. Blackburn's also on the injured list. He's expected to be their starter. These two guys have already picked up some knocks. You throw in the Japanese. Is it Fujinami? I believe is expected to be a step in the right direction in terms of pitching, but there's not enough here. This is a horrible baseball team, and I preface that saying I love, legitimately, even though I'm a Cardinals fan and I shit on the Cubs all the time, I love the 30 franchises, and I want nothing but success for the guys that are a part of it and in those locker rooms, and really for those fan bases, especially that went through the amazing A's run, that went through Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco and the Super Smash Brothers that Oakland had at the time, of those Tony La Russa led eras, and the Raleigh Fingers and Dennis Eckersley. You look back at the history of some of these franchises, and you think, this is where we're at.
Ugh.
We're a sub 60 win team, and we might not hit 60 this season. Is a reality.
Yeah.
And it's an embarrassment. And to be honest with you, I wish Major League Baseball would just give their balls a tug and take the franchise over and say, you're done.
Yep.
You done fucked up. Yep. You ruined it. It's bad on baseball. It's not a good. You think the MLB TV ratings are going to go into Oakland and show 8 fans in the stands? Hell no. It's a black eye. The creativity that the Oakland television stations have gone to frame shots, to take the crowd out of the equation, to pipe in the crowd noise when we are in a post-COVID world, and you're still piping in crowd noise. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. This franchise is horribly run, and it's not a knock on those guys that are putting on that jersey every day and going out. And those guys I have the ultimate respect for, because I wouldn't, as a player. Maybe I would if you're paying me enough money. But now that I come to think of it, sure, I'll throw on any jersey you give to me. But if I'm a marketable player, I'm saying get me the fuck out of Oakland. Yeah. It's not a mark on their fan base. It's not a mark on those people that put on the jersey. It's not saying that they are 150 times worse than the next guy on the next team. It's saying that it accumulates, and trash.
Some of the parts doesn't add up.
Trash accumulates, and it's a dumpster fire. Mm-hmm. And I have them sub 60. I have them at 59, and dead last in the American League.
Yeah, that last point you make is the biggest one I want to make about the A's right now, right? So if we think about the Billy Beane era A's, what did they always have? They always had somebody who was going to get them a supplemental pick. They always had somebody who was going to do the dirty work for them. They always had somebody who was going to emerge as a star, and you were going to say, whoa, shit, where'd Mark Mulder come from, right? Where'd Barry Zito come from? Where'd Jason Giambi come from, right? And they don't have that now. I looked up and down this lineup. I looked up and down this rotation, and I tried so hard to find who that guy was that was going to get them over the 60-win hump. He doesn't exist. You know what else I looked at? Reinforcements. There fucking aren't any. The Oakland A's, once proud franchise, once proud farm system, the apple in everybody's eye across Major League Baseball, the farm system that made the Yankees and Red Sox both rethink the way they did business during the arms race. It's bad. There's no reinforcements coming in June and July. There's just not. You're giving them too much credit. I've got them under 55 wins. I'm 50 to 54. This is going to be a really, really bad baseball team. they're going to be sellers at the deadline, and they're going to struggle to find buyers for anything on their roster.
Who can they sell?
100%.
But that's my biggest question. You want to be a seller at the deadline, and you want to who the fuck are you trotting out? Your 1 doesn't equal my 30.
Right.
Period. I'm sorry. And that's not a knock on their athletic ability. That's who you put on this franchise in that order, and then continue to add guys under him. Their 1 is not better than St. Louis's 30.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't like that's the big thing, right? Like if you try to project ahead to trade deadline, are they going to get farmhands back? Probably not, right? And that's a huge problem for a roster that's already so depleted. Who the fuck do they trade? Tony Kemp? He's not good enough to be a guy at the deadline that somebody thinks, yeah, gotta have him. Seth Brown's got a little pop in his bat. I mean, Langoliers, maybe, but like you said, right? Your 1 probably doesn't equal my number 30, and that's a huge problem for a team that's supposed to be fielding a Major League Baseball team. It's
especially
just
since you're a Nats fan,
right?
If you can make that statement as a Nats fan, like that's a big issue.
Absolutely. All right. So we both have them in the cellar. So we're kind of lockstep here with Rangers and Athletics so far. You've got them 59 wins. I'm in the dumpsters. 50 to 54. I don't see where they win games. Looking at that roster, obviously they're going to win some because it's baseball, but right. I don't know in that lineup who's going to be the guy to make the pop, and it's going to be so bad, and I feel so bad for that fucking fan base. All right, let's shift gears. Couple of exciting players, obviously, with the Angels. You got Ohtani, you got Trout. Little bit of free agent moves. They didn't lose really anybody worth mentioning, in my opinion. Added Tyler Anderson, maybe a guy that can lengthen that rotation. And Brandon Drury, who we saw last year when he got traded to the Padres, was a sneaky good acquisition for them down the stretch. Did they do enough in the offseason? Do you think they're going to improve in-house, Ty?
This is such a big question mark because this was the team that I said a year ago, and quite frankly, similar makeup and shakeup of the lineup. It looks very similar. You mentioned Brandon Drury, and the guy's 30 years old, and I think at 30, starting to find it.
I agree 100%. Especially last year, what I saw when he went to San Diego and what he did there. What do you have? 4 walk-off hits, I believe.
Yeah.
Throughout the second half of that season after the trade.
And that's common in baseball. We see that from time to time where guys just need more time in the league to get their shit figured out. But I think he's figured it out, and I think at 30 he's a hell of a lot more dangerous than he was at 24. I think he's matured and he's coming on late and now in the prime of his career. So he definitely looks the part, and he's going to be a big addition to this lineup.
Let me ask you real quick before you get to your next point, because as a Nats fan, I see Tony Two Bags go to LA and he's been hurt all the time, not been productive there. They bring in a guy like Drury, and they're not asking Tony Two Bags to play third base. Maybe 10 games this year they'll ask him to play third base.
Okay.
Put him at DH, right? But Ohtani. So where the hell do they put Rondon? Where do they put Brandon Drury? Is it a nice 3-man platoon that they can get away with, and you start to see Tony Two Bags get back into form, or is that just a really bad contract?
At this point, I think it's a contract that you got to take a look at and see where you can go. See what you might be able to throw into your farm system for. It's just a matter of I can't take Ohtani off the DH spot,
right?
And you're not going to shift and try to adjust a guy at this point in his career to play a different position out in the outfield. I think that would be an awkward transition after playing the 2-bag and 3-bag for your entire duration of your career. I think he becomes a very palatable option to shift at the deadline. maybe shift a utility player like what you're talking about into Anaheim's lineup. Maybe build up your farm system a little bit. The biggest thing with this Anaheim thing is it's the same damn team it was a year ago, and they underperformed dramatically a year ago, and all to the tune of even losing a legendary manager. Now, as we know, ultimately that was friction with the front office, and the front office wanted their guy, and they got him with Phil Nevin and removing the interim tag, and are ready to proceed forward from that standpoint. And I think it'll be a little bit cleaner slate. I think that they're coming certainly into spring camp with a lot higher expectations. But I look at the rest of the West, and even with a guy like Mike Trout, even with a phenom like Shohei Ohtani, and you mentioned Tyler Anderson and the addition of him, I still look at Reed Detmers as one of the best young pitchers,
Oh yeah,
up and coming young pitchers in baseball.
He's an ace. He's an
Yeah.
ace in waiting.
Yeah, he wants to whistle. And this team certainly is palatable. But I just look at the rest of the West, and I'm where do they jump? Who do they jump in front of? Are they going to dramatically be that much better than the Darlings and of Seattle from a year ago? Do they jump the Mariners? I think they're a mile away from Houston at this point, and with everything that Texas did in the offseason, I still think they're a few steps behind Texas, and quite frankly, Seattle. At the end of the day, I see this team underperforming at the break, and I see trades, and I see big names,
Ooh.
and
I was
crystal
listen, but
ball,
we are sharing a fucking brain tonight.
crystal ball.
I kid you not.
Mhm.
After you finished, I was about to make what I thought was a bold proclamation, but you're about to do it. Go ahead.
I don't know which one it is. It's a little hazy in the crystal ball, but it's 1A or 1B, and one of them's going to go. You think both?
I do. I agree with you that I think they're going to be in a position that they're going to feel the pressure to sell at the deadline. And I think a team is going to come in and make them an offer they can't refuse for Ohtani. You're talking 5, 6, 7 A-level farm hands for Ohtani.
An offer you can't refuse.
Exactly. You come to me on this day, the day of my daughter's wedding. Yeah, I just think that we're going to see Ohtani moved, and it's going to be a massive haul. It's going to be maybe the biggest trade we've ever seen. And he deserves it, right? Because of what he can bring to the table. And then on the Trout side, I think we're going to finally see the facade break for Trout. He sees the end of the tunnel coming. The back issues, the nicks, the scrapes, the injuries. I think he's actually going to go and potentially, I don't know if they'll make it public, but I do think he's going to ask for
requests.
Yeah, a trade.
Because he kind of wants to have a ring on his finger before he hangs it up.
Doesn't he deserve it?
And you know what? Frankly, he deserves at least 2.
Right.
Yeah,
let's get him one.
I see one of the two happening. I think 2 would be just the absolute decimation of a fan base that would turn and would take Oakland a number of years to recover from. So I don't think they're going to be that bold to trade both of their best players, but I think they find a way to get rid of one. And it could be Trout, because I think Shohei still is selling the tickets, and the Shohei mania still puts butts in the seats. And I don't think Shohei is at the point in his career where Mike Trout is, and Trout needs to go get that ring with a winner. And damn it, he deserves it. But all told, I have this team actually under 500 this year because of their underperforming at the trade deadline. They'll make some moves. You mentioned Tony Two Bags. I don't think he sticks around with this lineup very long. I think we could easily see Mike Trout taking a walk before the hot August months of July. And I've got the Angels sitting right about the 72 era, or 72, 73 mark for the campaign.
Yeah. I looked roster, lineup, rotation, and I felt very similar to the way I felt about the A's, with the exception of the fact that they were a better team last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I think 72 is their ceiling. I think they could go as low as 60 to maybe 65, I'll say, because I do think at the deadline they're going to be sellers. And if they do what I predict they're going to do and move both of those big stars, plus I do think you're right about Tony. I think they're going to find somewhere to send Rendon for a little bit of a haul just to get rid of that bloated contract. And a contender is going to say, well, maybe we could slot him in a few days a week at DH or something along those lines. I think they could crater pretty hard in the post-trade deadline part of the season.
Mm.
It'd be tough down the stretch for them to win many games. So I think 63, I'll say, will be the floor, 72 to the ceiling. I think they're going to be closer in that 67, 68 range.
And it's honestly, out of all of the previews that we've done, this was the hardest one for me to really kind of grip reality a little bit, because this one seems so unfair and it sounds like we're being so harsh. But I've seen this film before. We've watched this movie. This is the sequel. I know how this script ends, and we've been down this road, and I just have.
I want this script to have a better ending.
So do I, because this team deserves it.
Yes.
And frankly, I would love it for nothing more than for the Angels to be competitive along with Seattle and Texas and Houston, and to turn the AL West into what we've seen the past couple of years with the AL East.
Yep.
And something to match that. I just don't, because it has not developed. And I would have thought by now, at this point in their window of opportunity, I mean, it's shit or get off the pot. And if they don't get off to a hot start, if Anaheim doesn't come out with 4, maybe 5 games above 500 after the first 15 games of the season, I think you'll see attitudes dramatically shift and expectations drastically lower in Anaheim.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. I worry about that pitching staff, though. It's like it's Detmers and everybody else, and whether Anderson's going to be a guy or not. If he's a guy, maybe they get that third starter, right? Ohtani, Anderson, Detmers. We're going to figure it out, because Ohtani, I shouldn't say Detmers and everybody else, because Ohtani's the known commodity, but
right.
We're going to leave him as that ace of the staff, and let's figure out what the next 2 guys are, because the good teams, you're 3 deep and you figure out 4 and 5, right? The great teams are 4 deep, but the good teams are 3 deep and you figure out 4 and 5. All right, let's move up the totem pole to last year's second place finisher, who obviously neither of us are going to slot them in at number 2. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Seattle Mariners. Not a lot of moves this offseason. They lost a few guys. Mitch Haniger might be a big hit.
Yeah.
Carlos Santana was kind of a midseason acquisition that did some good things for them. Adam Frazier departs, but they've got a pretty loaded farm system in the infield. So I don't know that I sweat the infield too much. Mitch Haniger might be a big hit for them, but AJ Pollock comes in. Could he be the guy to replace that production they got from Haniger? And of course, the known commodity, Julio Rodriguez.
Julio.
Yeah. What are your thoughts here on the Mariners this year?
Yeah, last year Julio Rodriguez really took the entire division, took the entire league by storm with the way he started off with his rookie year, and quite frankly, the way that continued both offensively and defensively. Julio Rodriguez is the real deal. You have Eugenio Suarez, who still has just as much pop as he ever did in that lineup, even departing Cincinnati, which is a home run hitter's ballpark. Didn't matter. He was still crushing him in T-Mobile. Ty France had a hell of a first half of the year. Took a step back in really the second half, but all told, Ty France had a incredible career year in Seattle, and they were the darlings of the West, and they got back to the postseason, and everything was great. They made a hell of an addition in the middle infield, from the defensive standpoint. Multiple Gold Glove winner Colton Wong. former Cardinal, then Brewer, as the Brewers continue to just ship off pieces of a puzzle that was actually well put together. Whatever, Milwaukee, just keep doing you. It's fine.
Yeah.
Colton Wong moves over to Seattle. He's going to tremendously help this lineup a lot. I see Seattle doing really exactly what they did last year. To be honest with you, if I'm mapping out Seattle, I'm saying they'll look exactly like they did a year ago, but they're going to be short because Texas got that much better. They'll finish third this year. They'll fight tooth and nail with Texas for that wild card spot. I have it being a fun race that will go all the way through September, and I think we'll be watching AL West baseball in terms of our series previews and series that we put together. We're going to have a lot of Mariners Rangers down the stretch because they're going to be neck and neck battling for a spot. I have them just short though. I think Texas made enough moves to be that much better. Again, not a knock on Seattle and what they're going to bring to the table. They're going to be a solid baseball team and fun to watch. But I've got them under Texas at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Just under Texas. Let's say 84.
Okay.
They missed by 2 games down the stretch.
Happy birthday, James. Appreciate you tuning in. So I'm basically the same with you. As I was thinking through my preview of Seattle, I couldn't help but mentally think about the fact that it would be the most Seattle thing over the last 2.5 decades. Maybe not 2.5 full decades, but 15 years or so. It'd be the most Seattle thing ever for them to make the playoffs last year and come back this year and win like 70 games, 72 games, right? And just struggle the whole season. Julio goes into a slump, but I'm not fucking buying that shit, okay? I'm with you. This is going to be a tight race with them in Texas. And Texas, I've got their floor at about 92. I love what Seattle's got in terms of their young core. Ty France, you mentioned. Julio's the obvious, right? The hot commodity right now. I think their pitching staff really came into form last year. And I think that continues this year. And I've got them at 89 to 91, just behind the Texas Rangers. I do have them stealing that last wild card spot, though. So I've got 3 teams from the AL West. Yeah, 3 teams from the AL West getting into the wild and into the playoffs. So
who got your bump in the East?
Who
got knocked out in the East?
The Yankees.
Oh, wow. A pinstripe-less postseason from Gary.
Sir. Yes, sir. Wow. I just don't buy all the crazy fucking fairy dust and unicorn farts they went on last year. So I do have the Yankees missing out. I've got Toronto and Tampa getting in the AL East, and I've got 3 teams from the AL West here, and Cleveland's my only playoff team in the Central.
Same, except for we flip Seattle and the Yankees.
So you've got Seattle just missing a playoff spot.
I have Seattle just missing a playoff spot after a tight race. However, I will be curious, and here's an interesting side question that I just thought of as I'm looking at the lineup and looking at the pitching rotation for Seattle. Who's a big name pitcher that could become available come deadline? And if Seattle's in the hunt and they make a play for that,
that could shake things up.
That'll shake things up, and they could be a while, because I think they're an arm away from being.
They're one arm.
I think they're one arm away from being a playoff team. If you want,
I think they're one arm away from winning this division. To be honest, I'll go that far. They're one.
Wow.
They need an ace on that roster. Kyle Gibson's not it.
Yeah, and Castillo's great, but he's not it.
Castillo, great too, but
yeah, he's not it.
I don't know that he's that number one that I can count on every single week. I think he wins you 15 games this year, but I don't think he's a guy you trot out there and say, we're going to win every time he touches the mound, like a Verlander, like a Scherzer, right? Like those guys. I just don't see that with him. So yeah, absolutely. If they're at the deadline and they go make a real play for a big time arm in the rotation,
like Kershaw,
maybe, right? If it's time for him to move along, because LA's got what, 100 fucking arms?
9 million pitchers in waiting. And to be honest, could easily push him out
Yeah,
to the point where they say, hey, you're going to be a bullpen guy.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to the bullpen.
Let's find you a place to be a
So
starter still.
Pack, yeah. And oh, by the way, Seattle's a really good baseball team, and you have a shot to win a World Series with them. You want to go? Go.
And you don't have to leave the West Coast.
Yeah. And they have better fish.
Right. And it's not the National League. Everyone wins.
Rains a lot, but
does rain a lot. All right, let's finish up here with the defending, reigning World Series champs, the Houston Astros, who might have had sort of the least eventful offseason in this division, other than maybe Oakland, who just refused to do anything, except for the fact that the two moves that they did make were big-name guys, right? They lose Verlander out of the rotation, goes to the Mets, and they bring in a big stick with Jose Abreu, adding it to an already super potent lineup. What are your thoughts on the Astros, Ty?
There was a game in the early 90s on Super Nintendo. It was Base Wars. It was baseball with cyborg robots that crushed the ball about 700 light years away from the particular planet that you were playing in. That's what this team does. Yordan Alvarez is a cyborg who's not human, and I'm pretty sure is dropped by a spy balloon on some foreign planet outside of the solar system before we started shooting them down. This guy is absolutely insane. He's literally my favorite guy just to watch crush the baseball. I stand up and look up in quite literal awe at him. He's about 28 of me. And then, Houston, for as much shit as we give them for the scandal, rightfully so, they are a damn well-run baseball organization who makes a lot of good decisions with rosters and with talent evaluations. Talk about the shortstop spot. They get rid of Carlos Correa 2 years ago, and I thought they were the stupidest team. I said that's the biggest front office blunder you could ever do. Who is this tiny little pencil, Jeremy Pena, that's going to come up and fill the shoot? You really believe that Jeremy Pena? Oh shit, he's got some pop in his. Oh, he's quick too. Oh damn, he can play some D.
Oh, he won the ALCS MVP.
Oh, he just happens to be better than Carlos Correa was. Had no idea that was coming down the pipe. Oh, by the way, Jose Altuve can still bat 400 if he wants to. Breggs is amazing. You add Jose Abreu to an already potent lineup, and you just continue to scare the shit out of me. You've got three pitchers in Valdez, Javier, and Garcia that are 12-game winners. It would be interesting to see how, I think, is it Javier or is it Garcia? Which one has... We'll do a little stove demo
here.
Javier.
Yep.
This little, but you got the pitch clock on now.
He's gonna have to speed it up.
You're gonna have to wobble a hell of a lot quicker on the hill.
Can't rock the baby.
That'll be fun to watch that. Listen, they're rightfully so the World Series champions until somebody beats them. And as of right now, as defending World Series champions, I look up and down in every single division around, even in the National League, and I'm like, hello, contenders, anyone going to go up against Houston? No, I don't see it. And unfortunately for baseball fans, I see another year of Houston dominance where they're going to win triple digits. They're going to go to the postseason. They're going to make another run at this thing because they're built for it. They're built to be a 5-year dynasty that is right now in the peak of that 5-year dynasty term. Houston's built well. Their front office deserves a shit ton of credit. They are the defending World Series champions, and they are still, in my book right now, the front runners to do it again this year.
Yep. Yeah. You stole the words out of my mouth, and I hate to say it. I hate to fucking say it. I think they're going to miss Verlander. I just don't know how much.
who doesn't, right?
Exactly, right? Anybody who loses Verlander is going to miss him, but I just don't know how much, because you mentioned the 3 12-game winners that they have, and they've got like 3 country strong arms still ready to come into the starting rotation.
And we haven't touched their bullpen. We haven't even touched their bullpen.
Right.
It's
2 of those
out.
guys are going to be in the bullpen this year.
It's sub 1. Like,
oh
it's good.
God, it's unreal, dude. And you mentioned the lineup, and wasn't first base like the weak spot for them last year? What'd they do this offseason? Short up first base with a guy who can hit 700-foot fucking thermo nukes. So yeah, like losing Verlander hurts, but I think this is the team that can absorb a loss like Verlander. I'm with you. I've got them close. I've got them close to 110. I'm 107 to 109 for them in terms of wins. Best team in the AL. Favorite to win the World Series and go back to back. Dusty Baker does a really good job managing all of those personalities there in Houston. And honestly, you give me this much talent on a team, I think I could probably figure it out too, right? So not to knock Dusty, because like I said, he does a really good job managing there's big personalities on that team. Yordan Alvarez, cyborg, 100%. Dude looks like he's like cut out of rock and just was put on this planet to just hit the ball all over the park and hit it really, really far everywhere he hits it. 105, 107, maybe 108 wins. This is a team that's going to get really close to 110, and it might be at some points of this season, it might be the team that we're talking about getting close to the record in terms of pace, like we were with the Yankees last year.
Remember when we got all excited about that? We were chasing records, and it was May.
Yeah.
You know, how big of a disappointment though?
Oh my God.
Thinking of All-Star Weekend, thinking of let's already fast forward to July. I will be crushed. Disappointed would be an understatement. I will be a crushed baseball fan if Yordan Alvarez is not selected to participate in the home run derby.
Yeah,
he should be there every
year.
I watch him in batting practice, and I'm like,
holy shit. It's tower shots.
Just absolute unhuman like power.
Imagine what the Astros are about to do, though, if our projections play out, right? They're about to have – I was a little more bullish, so I'm going to go with my number of 92 wins for the Rangers. Sure. They're about to have a 92-win team in their division and lock it up in early to mid-September. That's how good this goddamn team is.
I got to go 106.
106?
That's my number, and that's
only
right because I just don't like going anything higher than 110. I think that's crazy talk, but they're a triple digit team, and they're gonna be fun.
Yeah,
sure. And that's the shittiest part, is because if this was any other team except for maybe Chicago, this is if this is the roster on 28 other teams, this instantly catapults to like my third favorite baseball team to watch.
Yeah,
but as it is, it's like Houston, and then there's still a part of me that's like I fucking hate Houston because of the deal, because of what transpired.
Exactly.
At some point, and I think it's probably going to be this year, where as a baseball fan, I'm going to let bygones be bygones and sweep that under the rug and just enjoy the shit out of this team that is so well put together. And what I love most about Houston is that 1 through 9 on that lineup, everybody's got a job.
Yep.
And everybody does it. It's not a one man picks up rest of team and carries team to finish line. This team works like an assembly line, and it is fun when it's clicking.
Don't they feel like, as an old head, right? Don't they feel like what you would build a roster to be, but just better, right? Like, I want a team that manufactures runs. Well, they do it. They just do it really well. I want a team that has some pop in the middle of the lineup. Well, they do it, but they have a longer middle lineup than most teams, right? 2 through 7, they've got a lot of pop, not 3 through 6, right? It's crazy to look at this roster, like you said, right? 1 through 9, they've got a job, and they do that job so well. And Jeremy Pena went and put 15 pounds on this offseason. He might have more pop this year.
Wrapped.
And according to reports, he hasn't lost a step. Bigger, stronger, faster. Unreal.
Houston. It's the water down there, man.
It's something.
Certainly it ain't the water because that's obviously not working for the Texans football team. So,
Ooh, yeah, that's true. All right, Ty, bring us home, buddy. What closing thoughts you got for us?
Closing thoughts as we move towards the National League next week. Gosh, I tell you what, my closing thoughts at this point in the pod, having discussed the American League, is it was a year ago the American League East and everybody else. And I think after what we've learned the Central is still shit and will be shit, but we've learned that little brother is now arrived and is waiting to bring some more fun into the American League. For the last 3 decades, as a baseball fan, I have been saying that the National League is the superior league in all of baseball. And for the first time, after running 3 weeks worth of pods and discussing the 15 teams that are in the American League, I think it's safe to say the American League has moved in front of Big Brother.